So what's up, everyone? This is Brum from twitch.tv/Brum Gaming, and what I'm going to do right now is actually just run through the dirty fighting spec for Gunslinger. Gunslinger's a Smuggler Advanced Class. This spec also works for the Sniper spec on Empire side. So this is the Gunslinger tree. On the right side, we have the Dirty Fighting tree, which I'm spec'd into right now. And Dirty Fighting is actually the shared tree between the advanced classes of the Smuggler spec. So Scoundrels and Gunslingers can both have a Dirty Fighting spec. I haven't actually played around with it on the Scoundrel side, but it has been tremendously effective on the Gunslinger side. Just to start out, looking at each of the three trees, the one on the left, the Sharpshooter tree, relies tremendously on cover. Now, cover, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to walk over here and actually drop into cover, is an ability that you actually get behind this little shield, and it activates certain abilities that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to use. And right now, in the sort of the state of the game for Star Wars: The Old Republic, cover is a mechanic that isn't perfected. There's a slight delay when you go into cover, and there's also a thing called natural cover, which lets you roll behind a rock or some kind of object that will protect you while you damage an enemy. The rolling mechanism is good. It can bring you to places that you don't want to be in. So overall, the cover mechanic is one that's not really cheered or celebrated by most people who are playing the game right now. And as such, Gunslinger and Snipers tend to be on the less played side rather than on the more played side. Okay, I'll do a rundown of the Dirty Fighting tree. Right now I'm spec'd into Black Market Mods, which is 2 points, increases alacrity by 4%. Alacrity is actually the equivalent to haste in World of Warcraft. It just speeds things up, cast times, it speeds up your global cooldown and things like that. I'm also spec'd into No Holds Barred, which increases ranged and tech critical chance by 6%. Ranged abilities are your shooting ranged abilities, and your tech abilities are like grenades and things like that. The third one in this tree that I'm not spec'd into is Holdout Defense, increases the damage dealt by Blaster Whip by 5%. Blaster Whip, I have here on the left, actually is a melee ability that does a pretty good chunk of damage. But as such, it's good to use, but not really that necessary, especially on the PvE side. Then we have Dirty Escape. In looking at actually this row of abilities, I'll start from the right side because the more pivotal ones are there. Open Wound increases the duration of Vital Shot by 3 seconds. Vital Shot, I have it here as 5, is a instant cast, 20 energy cost ability that is basically a damage over time ability. And so this one increases the duration of that by 3 seconds. Mortal Wound gives Vital Shot, that same ability we were just talking about, a 25% chance to tick twice when it inflicts damage, which is basically 25% more damage, actually more because it has a chance to crit when it does that second tick. Then there's Flash Powder, which I'm not spec'd into, reduces all targets' accuracy by 10% for 8 seconds after the flash grenade ends. Flash Grenade is a 10 energy minute and a half, I believe, is the non-talented cooldown ability that is just a 8-second CC for up to 5 targets within 5 meters of each other. So this talent would simply, when that ability ends, it would reduce targets' accuracy by 10%, and actually would be 20% with 2 points. And you have to actually have 5 points in each row before you can move up to the row above it. So I needed to either spec into Holdout Defense, Flash Powder, or Dirty Escape because I only have 3 points in this row right now. So I chose Dirty Escape. Dirty Escape is actually it says reduces the cooldown of Dirty Kick by 15 seconds and increases movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds after activating Dirty Kick. Dirty Kick is a 10 energy ability, and it basically is a stun with slight damage. And so typically as a gunslinger, you use it, you stun the person that's right in front of you, and then you actually with this talent, it allows you to just run away a lot faster, get out of range, or get some distance between you and the target. And simply because I had to put points into some place, Dirty Escape is a really great PvP talent for that. The next ability is Shrap Bomb. That's a unique Dirty Fighting ability. It's 20 energy, as you can see. Has a 12-second cooldown, and it throws a AoE bomb at a target, and within 5 meters, it will place a dot on obviously the target that you've got, and 2 more targets that are surrounding them, and put a 21-second dot on that target. And it's that and Vital Shot are the 2 dots that you need to kind of manage and keep up, whether it be in PvP or PvE. Then you have Bombastic, which is increases the damage dealt by Thermal Grenade and Shrap Bomb. So Shrap Bomb is the ability that we just got in the Dirty Fighting tree, and Thermal Grenade here I have it bound as 4, is a 20 energy. The cooldown untalented is actually 6 seconds, and it throws a grenade that does a good chunk of damage at a target, and then damages 4 people around that target if there are anyone there. And then lastly, we have Cheap Shots, which increases the damage dealt by Quick Shot, Speed Shot, and Wounding Shots. The first 2, Quick Shot and Speed Shots, aren't typically in the Dirty Fighting rotation, but Wounding Shot is. Wounding Shot is actually one of the primary abilities, and I'll cover that later because you actually get it later in this Dirty Fighting tree. Then we have Black Market Equipment, which increases the critical hit chance of all periodic effects by 12%. So that means when we have our 2 dots up, it increases the crit chance of that pretty significantly. Then we have Quick Getaway, which reduces the cooldown of dodge by 7.5 seconds and escape by 15 seconds. Actually, in this spec, there are 2 sort of free points on the top half of the spec, and right now I've actually put them into the next one, which is Feelin' Woozy, which gives Shrap Bomb 100% chance to reduce the movement speed of all targets by 30% for 6 seconds. And that's cool because in PvP it reduces reduces damage, or rather reduces the ability for people to close distance on you. However, I think, sort of as I've been fooling around with it, and this is really personal preference, I think I'm actually going to go into Quick Getaway because Dodge, I'll go show you what Dodge is. Dodge is a 1-minute cooldown, and it basically makes you dodge all ranged and melee attacks for 4 seconds. And so with this talent, it actually reduces dodge by 15 seconds, which gives you basically immunity to some cool stuff every 45 seconds. And that's tremendously useful in PvE when you have boss abilities that like target you and then do damage, because you can actually have them target you, press dodge, and then immune all of the damage and save your healers from having to heal you up. And then Escape in this Quick Getaway talent reduces the cooldown by 30 seconds, and Escape essentially is your PvP trinket in WoW, but in this case it breaks you from all incapacitating and movement impairing effects. Lastly, in this row we have Fighting Spirit 2-2. It reduces the cooldown of Cool Head by 30 seconds, and in addition, critical hits with bleed effects restore 2 energy. So that is huge, because critical hits with bleed effects are Vital Shots and Shrap Bomb, as I sort of showed you before, and each time it crits, it gives you back energy. And after I go through the talent tree, I'll go over the Smuggler resource mechanic, and you'll kind of get to see why that's so cool. And it has to do with when you have less energy than you really want to have, that ticks will kind of give you big chunks of energy back. Then we've got Wounding Shot. Wounding Shot is 30 energy, so it's 30 energy is enormous on the energy cost scale. It's a channeled ability that's typically 3 seconds. You can see it's down to 2.8 based on we're spec'd into Alacrity and whatever other Alacrity I have on my gear. It has a 9-second cooldown. And you can see from the tooltip it fires a wave of bolts at the target each second, dealing, this particular weapon damage is about 700 weapon damage, and that's 700 weapon damage per tick. And then it says, for each of your bleed effects present on the target during each wave, the target hemorrhages for an additional 278 internal damage. So that means for each dot, either a Shrap Bomb or Vital Shot, you get an additional damage every time it ticks. So that ability is massive, massive, massive damage. I tend to actually pop my DPS buff abilities or just my DPS cooldown abilities before I cast wounding shots to really maximize out on that. And then we have Reopen Wounds, which increases the critical of wounding shots and speed shots by 4%. Obviously just want to pick that one up because it makes wounding shots do even more damage. And then last in this tree, I didn't pick up Dirty Trickster. It makes Surrender give a 100% chance to remove all movement and parrying effects when activated. Surrender is over here. I have it bound to Z, and it basically says puts up the front of Surrender, instantly lowering your threat by a moderate amount, which in PvE is useful when obviously you're doing a lot of damage and you don't want to pull aggro, so you do that. And Surrender actually has a really cool animation, so I'm going to show you the Surrender animation right here. Drops all your money, your guns, puts up your hands, pretty cool stuff. Then we've got Coldblooded 3-3, increases the damage dealt by bleeding effects by 15% on targets below 30% of max health. Obviously, it's just a great ability to increase your damage. In PvP, it's awesome because when people are running away, your dots get actually a boost when they become low. And then obviously on bosses, that means you're getting quite a bit more damage when they're low. Hold Your Ground reduces the cooldown of Defense Screen by 15 seconds and Pulse Detonator by 10 seconds. Defense Screen, I have it bound as Q, is normally I believe a 45 second cooldown, and it protects you with a defensive shield, or rather defensive field around yourself, which absorbs incoming damage for 15 seconds, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a self-cast shield that allows you to absorb damage, which is really helpful in PvE and PvP alike, because you can negate damage coming in, you can keep yourself alive more. I tend to spam that. One of the cool things about this ability is it's off the global cooldown. So I could actually cast an ability, and while my global cooldown is going, I'll mash Q if I need to absorb some damage. And then lastly, we have in this Dirty Fighting tree, we have Hemorrhaging Blast. It's the 31-point talent. Costs 10 energy, which is relatively low, has a 15-second cooldown. You can see that it deals a certain amount of damage on the actual shot. And then it causes the target to take 30% additional damage from the smuggler's next 10 bleed effects. So basically increases your dot damage by 30% the next 10 times it happens. And it lasts 15 seconds. So it actually lasts the duration of the cooldown. However, 10 bleed effects, so like 10 ticks of a bleed effect, actually happen way faster than 15 seconds, especially with our Mortal Wound talent, which gives the vital shots the chance to tick twice. So typically that will actually fall off way before you can cast it again. So within your rotation, you want to make sure that you're keeping that up at all times. So then into the other trees, the other trees for the most part, you can fool around with them and see kind of what you like best. I still haven't completely, done the theory crafting to figure out which talents are the best. I have Saboteur's Utility Belt, which reduces the cooldown of Flash Grenade, which is that CC ability, and the cooldown of Thermal Grenade by 3 seconds, and that basically makes Thermal Grenade a 3-second cooldown, which means you can cast ability, whether it be an auto attack or whatever, the global cooldown will go, and then Thermal Grenade will be off cooldown. So you can go Thermal Grenade, ability, Thermal Grenade, and so what you can actually do is, as you're attacking a target, you can just work in Thermal Grenades into your rotation and AoE down additional targets without actually having to switch targets. Thermal Grenade is also really useful for doing damage on the run, and so I really like that talent. Bravado, I'm not spec'd into currently. It increases your maximum energy by 5 for 1 point, 10 for 2 points. And I'll explain why I didn't pick this one, but I am going to play around with choosing it and seeing what kind of difference it makes. Streetwise, 3-3 increases Cunning by 9%. Cunning is the main smuggler attribute and one of the most important stats, so getting a 9% increase on that's pretty much a no-brainer. Gotta do that. And then I've gone into the second tier of Saboteur. Independent Anarchy increases the damage dealt by Sabotage Charge and all area of effects by 15%. Sabotage Charge is basically a grenade that sticks to things and does a bunch of damage the next time you hit that target with an ability. It does require cover, so it's good to work into your rotation when you can. It's got a long cooldown of 30 seconds. but like I said, it does require cover. So if you're in a high mobility fight, or you're running around, you're not going to be able to throw that out. It's more of the mainstay of the Saboteur tree if you're going up the tree. But it does say all area effects by 15%, so that counts thermal grenade, XF freighter flyby, which is a freaking awesome ability I'll show you. And one of the things I haven't tested out, I want to test out if it actually increases the dot damage from Shrap Bomb, since technically it is an AoE ability. And if it does increase that damage by 15%, then it's definitely a must-have ability, since Shrap Bomb is a huge chunk of the DPS that you have as a smuggler. And then finally, in the Sharpshooter tree, I have 2 points. Increases the damage dealt by charge burst, speed shots, and wounding shots by 6%. I already covered how wounding shots is like just tremendous damage, so anything that gives you a flat 6% damage upgrade for 2 points is definitely worth it. So that's an overview of the spec. I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the abilities here and give you a little bit of a feel for the rotation. Even though I don't have a target I can do it on. Currently in TOR, there are no training dummies. There's no combat logs. There's really nothing that can give you a consistent feel of damage other than like dueling or otherwise. So typically, I've got my 1 through 5 buttons here. Typically, your rotation consists of those five abilities. Now in PvE, you're also going to include Flourish Shot, which I've got up here in the top left. And Flourish Shot does a little bit of damage. It's pretty low energy cost, but the significant part of it is that it reduces the target's armor by 20%. So it's in a raid. It's a necessary element to keep up so that your damage is elevated, as well as other damage dealers can consistently do more damage. So typically, the rotation that is used either in PvE or PvP is you're going to open up with a Hemorrhaging Blast, because you want to have the 30% damage buff come up for your bleed effects, and you want to start that cooldown immediately. If you apply your dots first and then do Hemorrhaging Blast, like I said, the buff actually will fall off before the cooldown's ready, so Hemorrhaging Blast is the first thing you want to apply. From there, you want to apply Shrap Bomb, then Vital Shot, which are your 2 dots. It'll have them fall off at relatively the same time, because Shrap Bomb has a little bit longer of a cooldown, or rather lasts a little bit longer than Vital Shots does. From there, you want to go into Wounding Shots, because Wounding Shots does damage when both of your dots are present. So with both of your dots up now, you do Wounding Shots to activate the 9-second cooldown there. And typically what I will do is, like I said before, I'll activate all of my DPS cooldowns before I do Wounding Shots to make sure it maximizes on that damage. And my current DPS cooldowns are the Relic, so I have 2 Relics. They're on separate cooldowns, so you can't activate them at the same time, but you can activate them within 30 seconds of each other. Then I have Illegal Mods, which is a level 50 skill, and it increases Alacrity by 20% for 10 seconds. So it allows you to just do quite a bit more damage, makes wounding shots cast faster, etc. And then I have this Adrenal, which is like a potion or like a temporary potion in WoW for 15 seconds, increases my power by 565, which basically is just overall damage. There's not a particular, it's like attack power, if you will. And then I'll go for Thermal Grenade, or basically go back into that rotation based on what needs to be reapplied. One of the things that's currently a little frustrating based on this spec, that's not necessarily as bad with other specs for Gunslinger, more in the PvE situation, is that there are no dot timers, and there's no way to distinguish what your dot is. So when you have 2 gunslingers in your raid and there's 2 vital shots applied, you actually have no idea which one is yours. So you got to kind of have a feel for it based on your spec and keeping an eye on the actual boss. I'm hoping that when they sort of change the UI around, it actually will put in something for that, whether it makes your dots bigger or what have you. But that's something that does take a little bit of getting used to, and there is some inefficiencies in that when you reapply a dot when you think that's your dot and it's really not. So that's something to manage. And that's pretty much the PvE rotation. Under 30%, you'll use Quick Draw. Quick Draw is a very high damage, low energy ability, and it's only usable on targets below 30% max health. So you'll kind of work that in as your target gets low. So before I go into other abilities, one of the things I want to highlight is the Smuggler resource mechanic. And so this is the same for IA on Empire side. And what basically happens with this is you have 100 energy, your abilities cost energy. And the unique thing about smugglers is that your energy regenerates at a different rate based on how much energy you have left. So you can see I've got my energy highlighted right now. I have full energy, and it says 5 energy per second. So that's what it'll regenerate at 100. The thresholds go like this. Between 60% and 100% energy, you'll regen 5 energy per second. Between 20 energy and 60 energy, you'll regen 3 energy per second. And then between 0 and 20 energy, you'll actually only regen 1 energy per second. So you can kind of see that between 60 and 100% energy, that is your sweet spot. That is where you want to stay as much of the time as possible, because when you go lower, you actually regenerate less energy, which is going to, sort of in the long run, have you do less abilities, which is less damage. If you get down to the 0 to 20% range, you are in bad shape. Like, that is going to reduce your damage by a tremendous amount, because at 1 energy, you have to kind of work your way through the thresholds. You're going to have 1 energy per second, 1 energy per second, until you get to the 20 to 60 range, and then you're going to have 3 energy and 3 energy and 3 energy until you can finally get up to 60, which is 5 energy. So it's like a tremendous it really cripples you quite a bit if you do get into that 0 to 20 range. You want to stay out of that pretty much at all costs. And you have a couple of, pretty much 1 or 2 abilities that allow you to do that. If you do find yourself a little lower, you do need to burst something down. Cool Head will give you 50 energy over 3 seconds, so effectively you can get yourself down to about 40 energy, 30 energy, and pop that and still be okay to continue casting. And then for set bonuses, illegal mods, the current set bonus on gear gives you 10 energy when you pop illegal mods, but that's not by default. That's only a set bonus, so that can kind of give you a little bit of a juice there. So that's kind of a look at the resource mechanic in general. And that overall is a feel for Smuggler, the Smuggler talent tree, the Smuggler abilities, and I will leave you with 2 of the coolest Smuggler abilities, the first of which is Scrambling Field, which is a 20% shield wall that lasts 10 seconds in an AoE radius. This is it right here. So anyone inside that bubble actually gets to take 20% less damage. And then the coolest spell pretty much in the game is Excess Freighter Flyby, which calls in support from your crew, dealing a whole mess of damage over 9 seconds, and that damage can crit to all targets in the blast area. And then standard and weak enemies, so NPCs, will actually just basically get feared in place if they get hit by this. So it kills them and they die. That is the ability, and what I didn't show you is actually overhead. You'll see the smuggler ship actually fly by and drop the actual bombs. So that's a look at the Smuggler talent trees and dirty fighting rotation. I would definitely say that currently in the game, it is the best tree due to PvE encounters, PvP. To give you a feel, for those of you who know anything about the sort of the PvP area, I'll average between 250,000 and 400,000 damage per game, just in my ability to stay moving and stay alive while I do damage. So that's it for now. Again, you can find me on twitch.tv/BrumGaming. Make sure if you have any questions or comments, you do leave them at the end of this video. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TheBrumLegacy. So thanks for stopping by, and I will catch you